The morning sunlight filtered through the kitchen blinds, casting warm patterns across the worn but clean linoleum floor. I sipped my coffee and watched Tyler practicing free throws in the driveway. His dedication reminded me of myself at his age, determined, focused, willing to work twice as hard for half the recognition. The basketball hoop had been a compromise. I could not afford the expensive travel teams or private coaching that some of his classmates enjoyed, but I made sure he had a decent hoop and space to practice. That was our deal. I provided the tools, and he provided the sweat equity. Our house stood on Maple Street, modest compared to the newer developments springing up around us, but it was ours. I had purchased it 3 years ago after saving every spare dollar from my military pension and part-time accounting job. The peeling paint on the trim and the slightly overgrown hedges were on my weekend repair list, but the structure was sound, and the mortgage was manageable for a single parent. Most importantly, it gave Tyler stability after years of moving between military bases. I watched him sink 3 shots in a row and smiled. At 14, he was already taller than me, lanky but coordinated with a quiet confidence that made me proud. School had been rough after our last move. Being the new kid is always hard, but basketball had given him purpose and a few solid friendships. I would protect that at all costs. Inside, on the mantel, sat the few photographs I kept from my military career. 8 years in Army intelligence had taught me skills I never imagined would be useful in suburban America: strategic planning, threat assessment, psychological operations. The discipline showed in how I organized our small home, everything in its place, contingency plans for emergencies taped inside kitchen cabinets. Old habits die hard. The neighborhood had attracted me precisely because of its diversity and lack of restrictions. Young families lived alongside retirees in homes ranging from original 1960s ranchers to newly renovated 2 stories. People mostly kept to themselves, but nodded hello on morning walks. No HOA meant I could plant my vegetable garden without permission and let Tyler practice basketball without violation notices. It was perfect, until 6 months ago. That was when the first construction crews arrived. Woodland Properties had purchased 3 foreclosed homes and several vacant lots. Within weeks, the character of the neighborhood began to change. Luxury SUVs cruised our streets, and men in expensive suits examined property lines with laser focus. Glossy brochures appeared in mailboxes promoting Greenview Estates, exclusive living for discerning families. The renderings showed our neighborhood transformed into something unrecognizable, and noticeably absent were the modest homes like mine. Mrs. Garcia, my elderly neighbor, brought over her brochure one evening. "They make it sound so wonderful," she said, her voice wavering. "But where are our houses in these pictures?" I studied the materials carefully, noting the small print about neighborhood improvement initiatives and aesthetic guidelines. Something felt wrong, but I pushed the worry aside. We had no HOA, and my deed made no mention of covenants or restrictions. I called Tyler in for dinner, watching as he made one final perfect shot. The ball swished through the net just as a black SUV drove slowly past our house. The driver paused, taking notes on a tablet. Our eyes met briefly before he drove away. That moment, that single assessing look, should have been my warning. But I was too focused on the peaceful life we had built to recognize the coming storm. Tuesday morning arrived with unexpected heat for early May. I was running late for work, rushing through my usual routine when I noticed the envelope. Unlike the usual bills and flyers, this one was cream-colored with embossed lettering: Greenview Estates Homeowners Association. I frowned, turning it over in my hands. In 3 years of homeownership, I had never received HOA correspondence because, as far as I knew, no such organization existed in our neighborhood. Inside was an official-looking violation notice printed on heavy cardstock. "Dear resident," it began, "it has come to our attention that the sports equipment in your driveway, basketball hoop, violates Section 3.4 of the Greenview Estates Covenant regarding unsightly recreational equipment. Removal is required within 72 hours to avoid initial fines of $100, with additional daily penalties of $25 for continued noncompliance." My coffee grew cold as I read and reread the letter. The signature belonged to Victoria Harrington, HOA president. I did not recognize the name, though I prided myself on knowing most neighbors within a 3-block radius. More concerning was the reference to covenants I had never agreed to. My closing documents had been explicit. No HOA existed in this subdivision. I had specifically chosen this neighborhood for that reason. I called Tyler downstairs to show him the letter. His face fell as he read it. "Do we have to take down my hoop? Basketball tryouts are next month." The disappointment in his voice hardened my resolve. "Not yet," I assured him. "This does not make sense. Let me investigate first." That afternoon, I left work early and walked the neighborhood with the letter in hand. The pattern was undeniable. Every modest home had received violation notices. Mrs. Garcia for her garden gnomes, the Thompsons for their children's playhouse, the Patels for their holiday lights still hanging from 3 months ago. Yet the newer luxury homes stood untouched, many with the same violations clearly visible. Mrs. Garcia invited me in, her hands trembling as she showed me a stack of notices. 7 letters in 2 weeks, she whispered. "The fines are already over $500. I am on a fixed income. I cannot afford this." The fear in her eyes triggered my protective instincts. Mrs. Garcia had lived here for 30 years, long before any developer had eyes on the neighborhood. I called the number on the letterhead during my lunch break the next day. An automated system informed me that the Greenview Estates HOA office is currently unavailable and directed me to their website to pay outstanding fines. The website itself was professionally designed but suspiciously light on details. No board member information, no meeting minutes, no governing documents. The county records office confirmed my suspicions. No legal HOA had been registered for our neighborhood. The clerk showed me a pending application from Woodland Properties to establish aesthetic guidelines for community improvement, but it remained unapproved. More telling was the complete absence of HOA provisions in any property deeds prior to Woodland's recent acquisitions. That evening, I knocked on the door of a recently renovated home where I had seen the black SUV parked. A woman answered, expertly coiffed with a practiced smile that did not reach her eyes. When I mentioned the violation notices, her demeanor shifted subtly. "Oh, the association is voluntary right now," she explained, emphasizing the word "now" with peculiar significance. "But we are working to formalize the arrangements. Greenview Estates has such potential if everyone cooperates with the vision." Walking home, pieces clicked into place with military precision. This was not random harassment. This was coordinated action with specific targets, the kind of psychological pressure campaign I had studied in the Army. They were creating fictional authority to intimidate residents, particularly those in modest homes. The violation notices, the automated phone system, the professional website, all designed to create an illusion of legitimate power. Tyler was practicing when I returned home, the ball rhythmically hitting the backboard. I watched him, remembering how basketball had helped him adjust after each military move. My military instincts were awake now, assessing threats and planning countermeasures. This fake HOA had just targeted the wrong family. Intelligence gathering begins with establishing patterns. My military training had taught me that even the most complex operations leave traceable footprints if you know where to look. After Tyler went to bed, I created a spreadsheet on my laptop to document every reported violation notice in the neighborhood. Color-coded pins on a printed map revealed the truth. Violations clustered exclusively around homes valued below $300,000, creating a clear demarcation line between targeted and untargeted properties. For 3 consecutive nights, I stayed up researching property records, development permits, and corporate registrations. Woodland Properties appeared innocent at first glance, a local development company specializing in neighborhood revitalization. Digging deeper revealed troubling connections. The company was a subsidiary of Apex Development Group, which had faced multiple lawsuits in neighboring counties. The pattern was identical. Purchase properties in transitional neighborhoods, create artificial pressure on existing homeowners, then acquire their devalued properties at fractions of market value. In Westridge County, 60 miles north, they had employed the same fake HOA tactic. Within 18 months, over 30 families had sold their homes at losses averaging 40% below market value. The development company then demolished the houses and built luxury condominiums that sold for triple the acquisition costs. The local newspaper had run a small story about neighborhood improvement without investigating the displacement of original residents. I printed every relevant document, organizing them in a 3-ring binder with color-coded tabs. Military intelligence had taught me the value of comprehensive documentation. Evidence needed to be organized, irrefutable, and accessible. This was no longer just about a basketball hoop. This was systematic exploitation targeting financially vulnerable families. The next step required direct contact with the opposition. A flyer appeared in mailboxes announcing the monthly Greenview Estates HOA meeting at the community center. I dressed carefully that evening, professional but understated, nothing that would mark me as confrontational. Tyler watched me prepare with concern in his eyes. "Are you going to fight with them?" he asked. I smoothed his hair back. "No, honey, I am just going to listen and learn." The community center meeting room held about 30 people, clearly divided into 2 groups. The newer residents sat near the front, designer handbags and expensive watches on display. The longer-term residents huddled in back rows, exchanging nervous glances. I chose a middle seat, perfect for observation while remaining inconspicuous. Victoria Harrington stood at the podium, impeccably dressed in a cream suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. Her blonde hair was pulled into a tight chignon, her smile practiced and cold. "Welcome to our growing association," she began, emphasizing our with subtle ownership. "Tonight we will discuss the beautification initiative and address ongoing compliance issues." For 40 minutes, I listened as she outlined community standards that would effectively eliminate every affordable house in the neighborhood. Required exterior renovations alone would cost homeowners tens of thousands of dollars. When she opened the floor for questions, the room remained silent, fear palpable among the original residents. I raised my hand, maintaining a neutral expression. "I have reviewed our neighborhood covenants and found no legal basis for these regulations or fines. Could you please clarify the authority under which these notices are being issued?" My voice was calm, my question precise, the same tone I had used when questioning intelligence assets in the field. The room grew silent. Victoria's perfect smile flickered momentarily before returning with renewed brightness. "We are operating under the community guidelines established by the developer," she responded smoothly. "While certain elements are being formalized, voluntary compliance shows good faith and community spirit." I remained composed. "My deed shows no covenants or restrictions. County records indicate no registered homeowners association for this subdivision. Without legal standing, these fines appear unenforceable. Her facade cracked then, just for a moment. The sweetness in her voice hardened to steel. Perhaps, if maintaining basic standards is too difficult for you, this neighborhood might not be the right fit. The threat hung in the air, naked and undisguised. Several original residents shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Garcia stared at her lap. The newer residents exchanged knowing glances. The message was clear: comply or leave. As the meeting adjourned, I lingered in the parking lot, watching as Victoria spoke intensely with a man I recognized from Woodland Properties marketing materials. They glanced in my direction before quickly looking away. Driving home, I processed what I had witnessed. This was not merely harassment. This was methodical economic warfare designed to force out existing residents. The fake HOA served as the perfect pressure tool, creating financial and psychological stress while maintaining plausible deniability. As a former intelligence officer, I recognized the tactics. As a mother fighting for her son's home, I feared them. Tyler was asleep when I returned, his basketball tucked beside his bed. Looking at him, I felt the weight of what was at stake. This was not just about property values or neighborhood aesthetics. This was about preserving the safe haven I had created for my child after years of sacrifice. The battle lines were drawn, and I needed to prepare for the next phase of this unconventional warfare. Rain streaked the windows as I sorted through the latest batch of violation notices. Since the meeting, they had doubled in frequency and severity. Today brought citations for unapproved window treatments, non-standard mailbox design, and most absurdly, inappropriate lawn ornaments. Referring to the small American flag I displayed near the front steps, a habit carried over from my military days. The targeting had become blatant. While neighbors received occasional notices, my house was subject to daily scrutiny. Victoria Harrington herself drove past multiple times, openly photographing my property. The pretense of impartial enforcement had vanished. This was now personal. Still, I maintained documentation discipline, adding each notice to my growing evidence file. Tyler entered the kitchen, his movements sluggish, eyes downcast. Basketball season was approaching, and normally his enthusiasm would be building. Instead, he had grown quieter with each passing day. "Mom," he began hesitantly, "maybe we should take down the hoop, just until this blows over." I studied my son carefully. Tyler had always been resilient, adapting to each new military base with remarkable flexibility. This withdrawal was unlike him. "Did something happen at school?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral despite the concern building inside me. He shrugged, the casual gesture contradicted by the tension in his shoulders. "Nothing important." The dismissal was too quick, too practiced. I waited silently, using the interview techniques that had served me well with reluctant informants. The silence stretched until he finally spoke. "Brandon Harrington said some stuff. It is not a big deal." Brandon Harrington, Victoria's son. The connection was not coincidental. "What kind of stuff?" I pressed gently. Tyler stared at the floor. He called me the charity case bringing down property values. Said his mom told him our house is an eyesore that makes the whole street look poor. His voice cracked slightly. He told everyone my mom is some crazy military vet who cannot afford to live here, and that we will be gone by summer anyway. The calculated cruelty of targeting a child ignited something primal within me. Military training had taught me to channel anger into strategic focus, but maternal instinct burned hotter, brighter. I breathed deeply, mastering the emotion. "Tyler, look at me." I waited until our eyes met. "This is not about you or your basketball hoop. This is about valuable land and people who want to take it without paying fairly for it. We are not leaving our home." That afternoon, 3 new violation notices appeared on our door. One specifically cited the basketball hoop as athletic equipment creating visual pollution. The fine had doubled to $200. Tyler's face fell as he read the notice, the enjoyment of his daily practice now tainted. That evening, he did not go outside to shoot baskets. The county record's office became my second home as I dug deeper into Woodland Properties activities. The clerk, sympathetic to my persistence, pulled a recently filed building permit application that confirmed my worst fears. Woodland had submitted plans for a community enhancement project, a luxury playground and park that would require the demolition of 7 existing homes. My house sat at the center of the proposed development. The legal path forward seemed increasingly difficult. I consulted an attorney, but the retainer fee alone would consume my emergency savings. The lawyer was honest about the challenges. Without clear evidence of harassment or fraud, this becomes your word against theirs. Development companies have deep pockets and patience. They can outlast most homeowners through attrition. That night, I stood in Tyler's doorway watching him sleep. The stress had affected his academic performance. His math teacher had called expressing concern about his dropping grades. The psychological warfare was working, not against me, but against my child. The realization crystallized my resolve. If they wanted warfare, I would give them warfare on terms they never anticipated. In my bedroom closet sat a footlocker I had not opened since leaving active duty. Inside lay remnants of my military service, tactical manuals, field notebooks, medals I never displayed. Beneath them was a journal documenting operations I had coordinated, campaigns designed to counter insurgent activities through community engagement and strategic information management. The parallel was not lost on me. I was now facing an insurgency in my own neighborhood, with tactics designed to destabilize and displace. I opened my laptop and began researching state laws regarding homeowners associations, property rights, and fraud statutes. Military intelligence operations succeed through comprehensive understanding of the battlefield. This suburban conflict would require the same methodical approach, identifying vulnerabilities, building alliances, and executing coordinated countermeasures. At dawn, I found Tyler standing in the driveway staring at his basketball hoop. "Do you think they will really make us leave?" he asked, voice small against the morning quiet. The question held the weight of every military move we had endured, every new school, every fresh start. He had never complained then, but I recognized the cost of constant displacement in his eyes. I placed my hand on his shoulder, feeling the tension beneath his thin t-shirt. "No, Tyler, this is different from the military relocations. This is our home, purchased fairly, maintained properly. We have rights they cannot simply override with fancy letterhead and intimidation." He nodded, the gesture more hopeful than convinced. "Brandon says his mom knows important people who can make anyone move if they want the land." "Brandon does not know who your mom is," I replied, the calm in my voice masking the tactical planning already underway in my mind. "And his mother is about to learn." That evening, as Tyler completed homework, I retrieved my military planning journal and began drafting counterinsurgency measures adapted for suburban application. On the page header I wrote, "Operation Home Defense, Countering Unlawful Displacement Activities." The military strategist in me analyzed vulnerabilities and assets, creating a comprehensive battle plan focused on community alliance building, information operations, and evidence collection. Victoria Harrington and Woodland Properties believed they were targeting a vulnerable single mother without resources or recourse. They had miscalculated severely. They had brought the battlefield to my doorstep, threatened my child's security, and violated the very community they claimed to improve. The tactical calm I had honed in military operations settled over me. The fake HOA had awakened a skill set they never anticipated facing in a suburban neighborhood dispute. Dawn light filtered through the blinds as I transformed our dining room into an operations center. Military precision guided the setup, evidence binders arranged by date and type, neighborhood maps marked with violation patterns, corporate research organized in color-coded folders. The dining table, once reserved for family meals, now served as command central for what I had designated Operation Home Defense. Phase 1 required comprehensive documentation. I created standardized forms for neighbors to record every interaction with the fake HOA. Each violation notice, phone call, and encounter needed timestamps, participants, and verbatim quotes. Evidence collection demanded rigor that would withstand scrutiny. I photographed every corner of my property daily, establishing a timeline that would reveal the selective enforcement targeting my home. Mrs. Garcia arrived first, clutching her folder of violation notices. Her hands trembled less now, purpose replacing fear. "I have lived here since 1988, she said firmly. "No developer with fancy cars will force me out." By noon, 7 neighbors had stopped by, each sharing similar stories of intimidation. The Patels brought security camera footage showing Victoria Harrington personally placing violation notices on their door at 5:30 a.m., contradicting her claims that professional inspectors conducted assessments during business hours. The Thompson family, whose children played basketball with Tyler, arrived with screenshots from the fake HOA website. "The terms of service lists an LLC registered just 3 months ago," Mr. Thompson explained. "I work in corporate compliance, and this organization has more red flags than a military parade." His technical expertise proved invaluable as we documented the digital evidence. By week's end, 28 families had joined our information-sharing network. I established an encrypted messaging group using military-grade protocols to protect communications. The community that had once been isolated in their individual struggles now functioned as a coordinated unit. Information flowed through established channels, verified and cataloged with discipline that would have impressed my former commanding officers. Phase 2 launched with strategic community building. When the community center mysteriously canceled our reservation for a neighborhood meeting, I pivoted without hesitation. My backyard became the gathering place, lawn chairs arranged in orderly rows as nearly 40 residents assembled. Children played together while adults shared stories of HOA harassment, the collective experience revealing the calculated nature of the campaign against our homes. Standing before my neighbors, I felt the familiar focus of conducting a military briefing. What we face is not random harassment, but coordinated action designed to force us from our legally owned properties, I explained, my voice steady. Woodland Properties, operating through Victoria Harrington and other recent arrivals, has implemented this same strategy in 3 other neighborhoods across the state. Using presentation skills honed during intelligence briefings, I displayed property records, corporate filings, and news articles documenting similar tactics in other communities. Cell phones recorded everything as neighbors gasped at the aerial photographs showing how previous neighborhoods had been demolished and redeveloped after resident displacement. The pattern was undeniable: create artificial pressure, devalue properties, acquire at below-market rates, demolish for luxury development. Mrs. Garcia stood shakily, her voice stronger than I had heard in months. "My husband built our patio with his own hands. We raised 3 children in that house. I will not be bullied out of my memories." Around her, heads nodded in solidarity. Fear was giving way to determination across the assembled faces. A retired paralegal volunteered to draft cease and desist letters demanding the fake HOA stop, issuing unenforceable fines. The Patel's college-age daughter offered to create a website documenting the developer's history of community displacement. The strategic counteroffensive was taking shape through collective action. Operation Home Defense entered Phase 3 with simultaneous delivery of cease and desist letters to each fake HOA board member. The psychological impact of coordinated action was immediate. Victoria Harrington arrived at my door that same